Welcome to our series, Dyin,
Cryin
and Lyin on Two Luckies,
the podcast. This is a series where we rewatch Little House on the Prairie, a show that we loved when we were kids, and we give our perspective on it as adults.
As adults, and I must say, watching it as an adult has been very different.
It's been extremely different, and we found out that their plots tend to have three main categories. They are either dying,
They're crying,
or they are lying. And we figured out that they have 2 out of the 3 categories every episode. So if you want to know what it's like to sit in the car with us and have us tell you a story with categories, you're about to find out. So buckle up. Here we go. For Two Luckies, the podcast presents Dyin,
Cryin,
and Lyin.
Season 2, Episode 1. The Richest Man in Walnut Grove. Before we get into this episode, we need to give a shout out to Ricky.
Yay!
Thanks, Rick. Thanks to your generous donation, you hooked us up with some much needed equipment for the new studio. So thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Ricky. We start out with Pa milking a cow. You see his hands in the bucket, and we immediately have
the
a Carrie report.
Yay!
She's standing there in the barn with Pa, and she comes over, and he says, "Do you want to try?" And she goes over with a smile, and he is squeezing her hand on that teat, but they get that milk going, and she's smiling, and now she's walking out with a bucket. So she has graduated for today from the high chair for a second.
She's out of the high chair.
And she's walking past some chickens.
And I just want to say, Chaz, still in that season 1 shirt.
Still in that season 1 shirt. They are working the shirt.
Well, Carrie definitely graduated from the high chair to now she's not only milking the cow, but walking carrying a full bucket of milk and looked like she spilt more on her than actually
Well, and
got in
Jack
the bucket.
helped her spill it because he bumped into the bucket as she's trying to walk, and it looked like it was a very full bucket.
Yes, but they go inside the house and they're sitting around the table and you find out a few key things. Number 1, Hanson hasn't had a dime come into the business in the last 2 months, and Chaz is working on filling a big order that he's going to have to freight himself to Mankato, so he'll be gone again.
So if Mr. Hanson hasn't been paid in 2 months, that means that the Ingalls haven't had any money coming in, and now they owe a lot of money at the mercantile. Carolyn tells us every time she goes in to bring the eggs, Mrs. Oleson is reminding them of how much money they owe. And Mary has very little supplies left for school. She's unable to hold her pencil, and her paper's running out. And that's when Laura says, "Well, mine's only halfway done my paper, and my pencil's plenty long."
And Chaz, well, it wouldn't be if you did as much homework as your sister here.
Yeah, so now we have another instance of Charles being away from home. So they started off
for cash on the barrelhead.
Cash on the barrelhead. They've been charging all over the place. The whole family gets into the wagon. They got their bonnets on, and Ma is going in there with Carrie again out of the high chair. And she had been sitting at a regular chair at the table. That was a big deal. We had never seen that before. She was always in a high chair. But now they're in the mercantile, and Mrs. Oleson is talking about how her back hurts because Ma is trying to be friendly. And Nels makes a comment under her breath, and under his breath. And when Mrs. Oleson says, "Did you say something?" he does Lyin. We knew they couldn't get that far into it. And because he tried to say, "Oh, your back's hurting again and again and again." And he said, no, I was looking at these shoes and I was saying a 10 and a 10 and a 10. And we know that was a Lyin. Thank you.
Well, it didn't take long before Ma gets into a pissing match with Mrs. Oleson, and she goes so far as to say that, we're not running a charity over here, to which Ma and her, what she likes to be godly, but this is not a godly way to take this. "Now, you look here, Mrs. Oleson. My husband will be in to pay the bill by the end of the week. Good day to you. Come on, Carrie."
And she was yelling in Mrs. Olson's face.
She was.
Meanwhile, Mrs. Oleson was trying to say the mercantile has paid for everything in cash. Cash on the barrelhead.
Cash on the barrelhead,
What did she say?
Chaz?
Cold, hard cash or something like that. And that now they're extending credit for 2 months now. And this is not a way to treat a friendship. And that's when Ma got in her face and said, "Well, I could hardly do that with something that doesn't exist."
Just snippity.
Snippy for somebody who her husband always has cash in the barrel head, but they've been borrowing money for months. At the same time that Ma's words are hanging in the air that my husband will pay this bill in full by the end of the week, we go over to the mill and we see
Mr. Hanson with a letter in his hand, handing it over to Chaz, saying, "Letter from the bank in Mankato. The construction company for that big order just went bankrupt."
So they will probably get pennies on the dollar sometime in the future if they get anything at all. And they had shipped out all this lumber and done all this work for nothing.
Yep. So now the mill's closing down and Chaz is holding his hat in his hand.
Yes, after he punched something. He's having a hard time here.
We're back at the Ingalls farm where we see Ma and Carrie again.
She's
Outside
really in
looks
this.
like she's scrubbing sheets in a wash basin, and here comes Chaz with the old dream team jingling away, and Ma just can't wait to shout out about how she had it out with that Mrs. Oleson about the bill, and she's still going on and on when she sees him hop off the wagon and just kind of walk away and stare off into the distance.
Yes, and the smile drops right off of
Uh-huh.
her face when she sees his posture, and she leaves Carrie over there and she walks over to him because he's over by the fence. So she knew something was wrong just by the way he looked.
Mm-hmm.
It's nighttime at the Ingalls house. We're inside. Everyone is sitting around the fire. It's dark. And Pa is playing the fiddle.
Return of the fiddle.
It's the return of the fiddle. And he's playing some mournful song. And they go closer and closer to Laura's face while she's staring at Pa. Like, what are we going to do? And she's petting Jack. And now we see feet. So we're going to figure out what's
occurred to me
happening.
watching all of that. What happened to all that corn that they got from season 1?
You know, when did they farm?
It seems like he stopped farming and he's just a mill worker.
Yeah,
now.
he just works at the mill now. I had mentioned toes earlier. They belong to Laura. They are up in the loft. She's up there with Mary. They got their bonnets on. And then Laura proceeds to bite off her toenail. She said she had a hangnail. And they're both talking about what they can do to help their parents because they've never seen Pa so sad. And it's like the sadness just comes out in the way he plays that fiddle.
And it just comes out of his fingers and onto the string.
Right onto the strings. So now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do, but only after we got to watch Laura chew her toenails.
We're still in the little house, and now we're down with Pa and Ma. Pa's sitting up out of bed. He can't sleep. He was just so sure on that money. And she says, I feel really bad. It's the first time in my life I'm not going to be able to pay Oleson off, and I'm going to call that lying. When you did the 100-mile walk, you had to return the dream team because you couldn't pay for it.
Well, he said this is the first time I haven't been able to pay off a debt, and we know that they left some other place. Didn't he say that? With the crop that went bad, that they left because they couldn't make it there. And the reason they couldn't make it there is they didn't have enough money to live there.
Right, so lying.
They are lying.
And then you got Ma who's telling them, oh, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And Chaz
she says,
is going,
I wasn't worried, and that's a lying.
It's morning time. Pa and Ma are loading up in the wagon. I think they had Carrie with them,
They had
too.
Carrie in the wagon again, so the Carrie report, she's in the wagon.
Yep, but he's got to stop into town and say, I got to tell Oleson I can't pay this bill. And, I did forget to mention the last time around that Pa did say to Ma, don't worry, I'm going to get a job tomorrow. You wait and see. And that's when she said, oh, I'm not worried. And that's why we called out that lying. She's worried about everything, and rightfully so.
Yes, now they're good. They're almost to the Olsons, and he already said she's going to be hard on you. And Ma said, well, I mean, she'd have to be. Otherwise, I may have to like her, and that would just ruin my day.
Tisk.
Well, now, Mrs. Oleson was over there dusting inside, and she hears that the Ingalls have arrived, and Pa is holding Carrie. So Carrie's she's in this episode all over the place.
She's growing up.
She's growing up. And we have this whole conversation because they already found out, the Olsons, from Mr. Hanson, what had happened. And Charles is saying, I'll pay it, as soon as I can, but I'm only going to be charging necessities. So Mr. Cash on the Barrelhead is still trying to extend credit.
Still trying to charge.
And Nels is being very nice about it. He's trying to be understanding. And Harriet isn't having none of that because she wants an apology from Ma.
Full
apology. And then that gets Charles's dander up, and he says, I'll fall in the Grand Canyon before I make my wife go begging to you. So, oh my goodness, he's fired up. He's going to go find some money.
2 peas in a pod.
2 peas in a pod.
So Pa's over at the blacksmith now, asking him if he's got any jobs he can do because he's trying to find work. And after a little bit of cajoling over there, he finally agrees that he'll clean out some horse pasture.
Curry or something like that.
Something like that.
That takes 2 to 3 hours a day.
And he'll pay him 25 cents a day.
25 cents a day, and because the guy was like, I'm embarrassed at how little I'd be able to pay you. And he said, try me. And they shook hands on it. And now he's walking through a field looking to see if anybody else in town needs work.
Looks like they got some tough times ahead.
So we find out that Pa is walking past the farm of a former episode.
School mom.
And this guy had a son, I think his name is McKay, and I think his son's name was Abel, and I don't remember what the father's name is, but he digs clay out of the ground and uses that clay to make bricks.
Yes,
and
he makes bricks out of something that he called a pug mill.
Yes, a pug mill. And he hit some kind of a natural spring, and now the entire thing is underwater. And when Charles came over, they go back and forth. And finally, the guy was like, well, I got to build a new one, and I can't start that, I can't do it before the snow flies, so I got to wait until after winter. And Charles is very dismayed, and then he looks at it, and he says, knocks on the door and says, hey, what if you could do it now and use the existing one? So he convinced him to let him dig out something to make irrigation for his fields and to divert the water from the spring so he can use the existing pug mill.
He's gonna dig a really big trench, I believe, and try and drain this whole area out, which for one man by hand, that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And the guy says to him, if it doesn't work, you'll understand, I can't pay you. And he agrees to it, and they go inside, and now they are making some kind of a deal.
Let's see. We're back at the Ingalls farm. They're all sitting around the table, and Chaz has just figured out that at the current rate, and if everything works out well, it's going to take him 3 months to pay off that Oleson bill.
And that's with doing without.
And he is forbidding Ma to set foot in there until that bill is paid. And then he says, well, I'll tell you what else. After this is all settled, it's only going to be cash on the barrelhead.
Cash on the barrelhead. Back again.
Pretty sure he said that last season, didn't he?
Yeah, he says it a lot, actually. And then we had a whole heaping bunch of crying because once he realized that all of the kids have figured out a way, because Mary is now going to be helping the seamstress in town, Mrs. Whipple, do work full time. So she's going to be leaving school for a while temporarily. Laura's going to bring home her homework. Laura's going to do Mary's chores. And Carrie says, I can milk the cows. And then they're all happy and the strings are swelling. And Charles gets up and he starts crying. And then Mary says, you're going to let us help. And she starts crying. And then it's crying all around because they knew that this was Dyin, Cryin and Lyin season 2.
And I just have one question. Take it that this means that Chaz is still going to be in that season 1 shirt for a while. Huh?
For a while now. So Reverend Alden is arriving in a very bouncy carriage. You see him like really going up and down in this carriage over where Charles is working to dig this irrigation ditch by hand.
And was it just me, or was he riding awfully close to the edge of that water?
He was, yes. I was thinking like if he bounced, I was actually thinking about that. If he bounced the wrong way, he was about 2 feet away from this very deep pool of water, and he could have gone splash, but he's luckily stayed in there, and he gives Charles a line about how, I was over here making visits anyway this day, and then we find out that the reason he was out there was because Nels had asked him to go check on Charles, so Reverend Alden was a lion. Thank you, scriptwriters. You knew you had to fit it in there. And then we find out that all these visits that the Reverend does all day, he ends up sloshing around from all the tea he has to drink because he refuses the water, the cold water that Charles tries to give him. And Charles is is digging this very soft-looking dirt, and we've dug in the dirt. I'm telling you, when you're out there and it's never been dug before, it is very difficult to dig in places that have never been dug before. And he's over there just throwing dirt around, throws it on Reverend Alden too, and they laugh back and forth, and we find out that Charles has no qualms with Nels. He's not mad about that. And Reverend Alden says, "You missed your calling, Charles. You should have been a reverend." And he says, "I don't like tea." And then he gets right back to work.
Back in town, Chaz is actually cleaning up the job he had there for the blacksmith and gets done in the barn. And now he's getting ready to head back over to McKay's to start digging in the dirt again. Walks around the corner and runs right into Mrs. Oleson, to which he takes his hat off and just says, "Good day, Mrs. Oleson."
And she makes such a face because I'm sure he smells like whatever he was throwing there because he was cleaning out the horse barns.
It's horse crap.
Yeah, so she was looking at him like he was very smelly, and he puts his hat back on and he walks away. Now it's nighttime and we're at the little house and they're sitting around the table, and Carrie is still in a big girl chair.
She's growing up.
She's growing up. She's got lines all over the place, and she says she wants sugar on her berries because Laura picked a whole bunch of berries, and that is what they have for after dinner. And she wanted sugar on them, and they have no more sugar, no more tea. Pa's very upset, so he says, "Okay, we'll just have berries and a coffee." And Ma informs him,
"There's no more coffee."
That was the last of it this morning. And now he says, "Well, if no one else is complaining, then I won't complain." And the good Lord gave them berries for Laura to pick, so now they're all eating their berries, just berries.
You know, one thing I notice in this show, his kids love to take his words and throw them right back in his face.
Yes, this entire scene, they were like, "Well, you always say that sugar's bad for your teeth, and you always say that coffee keeps you awake and makes it hard to sleep." And he was like, "Yes, I did say that. Yes, I did say that." So, but the other thing is, they have a tendency to get into this circumstance. We have seen this before, where they had some kind of misfortune or overspending happen, and then they end up owing a ton of money that they have to now do all this stuff to get back.
We're in town just outside the school, and it looks like school has either let out or they're out for lunch. They didn't really say. But Miss Beadle has to stop Laura because it's 2 days in a row now she hasn't turned in any homework. And just said, "Come on, what's the matter?" And Laura says, "Nothing."
And we know that's a Lyin, because
she can't afford tablet paper to do the homework on, which she eventually finds out.
Right, and then she ran out of paper, and Miss Beadle is very nice, and she says she makes a deal because she knows that this family does not allow any kind of taking of charity. So she says, "I'll go over. I was just about to go over there to the mercantile and buy some paper. I'll buy one for you and Mary, paper tablet. And then someday in the future, when I need chalk, you'll get me the chalk."
That's right. So
and then Laura agrees.
They're on their way over to the mercantile, and we got Nellie and Willie standing on the porch, and ooh, this is probably going to be good.
It probably is. So Nellie and Willie are standing on this porch, and they are right in front of the mercantile, and they are part of the richest family in town.
And also the biggest pains in the butt.
Yes, and they love to bother. Nellie loves to bother other kids, and she likes to do mean things, and she makes Laura cry because she was saying about how poor their family is, and they can't come in there anymore, and that her father smells, and Mrs. Oleson is saying that she's glad that he doesn't come into the store anymore.
So she gave us our next
Cryin. Because
way to go, Nellie.
They were so mean to Laura, and they said so many bad things about Pa that they made Laura cry. And then Laura goes running off because she's sad about the fact that they were saying that her father works like a mule and that's all he's good for. And then Miss Beadle comes outside and she's looking around and she says, what happened to Laura? And of course Nellie had to lie and said, "I don't know, Miss Beadle. We just said hi and then she just ran off." And we know that's a Lyin because you made her cry and that's why she ran away and you knew it. And now they said, "Oh, we have to go in and do our homework." And now Miss Beadle is just staring after Laura, looking very upset.
They're hitting the categories.
They are hitting our categories.
We pan over to a road where we see Miss Beadle going in one direction and Chaz is leading the horse walking the other way.
No, he's got the dream team from the 100-mile walk, his jingling horses over there.
Well, he's walking with one of them.
No, he's got both of them. They were both there.
Oh, were they both there?
Yeah, one was behind the other. He didn't have them hooked up to anything.
Anyway, you know, she's trying to explain to him what happened in town and how Laura ran off and, that she wanted to get her paper.
And she was afraid that she had upset Laura, and that's why she came out there.
And then she turns around and hands Chaz the 2 tablets that she bought at the mercantile, and he's going, thank you. Now, what happened to old Cash on the Barrelhead?
Cash on the Barrelhead, we're going to call that a lion.
If you really meant it, you wouldn't have taken the paper. You would have found another way.
Exactly. Pa is finishing putting away all the stuff from the horses onto the walls, and he hears a crying. Now, don't get mad at us. We didn't write it. Laura's upstairs in the hay barn, and she is up in the loft, and she's sitting there, and she is crying because of all of that teasing that Nellie and Willie did, and she didn't want to tell Pa what's going on because he came up there to find out what's going on. He makes her say whether or not it was Miss Beadle that made her feel bad. She confirms that it was not Miss Beadle, and then he finds out the whole story of what Nellie and Willie did, and then he says, you know what? I do smell bad, and I do clean up after the animals, and it's for getting a good job. Mm-hmm. God put sweat in a man's body so he can work hard and sweat it all out and feel good. And he gives a whole hard work speech, and that's how you're supposed to live your life. And then he says he's going to go down to the creek and get closer to God because cleanliness is next to godliness. When he's washing up the creek, go inside and go help Mom with dinner. And when she's saying, as she's going down the ladder, Pa, I love you so much. She's shaking her head no, back and forth very strenuously. And now we have a black screen, and we'll find out what's coming up next.
But I got to tell you, whatever they use for that season 1 shirt must be really made of something strong, because that thing must be getting scrubbed since he wears it every day, and it's always covered with all this garbage and still looks fresh as new. He looks,
Ma is very good at laundry, and this must be the strongest fabric on the planet.
It's the next day, and we're greeted with Mary and Laura, and Mary is power walking her way into town, and they're having the conversation about how Mary's so glad that it's Friday, and Laura wants to know, whoa, what are you so glad for? I'm the one going to school. She says that she's going to get paid today.
Yes, so and they're speculating about how much she's going to get paid because she gets paid by the piece, and she sewed really quickly, but for some reason she doesn't know how much she's going to get paid, and she's hoping it's more than $1. Yes, and then they were really kind of cute together because Laura said, oh, I wish I could do that too and make some money. And Mary says, well, if you weren't doing my chores and getting my assignments, I wouldn't even be able to make this money. So it's almost like this money, half of it is yours, which was very sweet of them, the sisters. And then they part ways, and Mary tells Laura, don't let Nellie get you upset.
Yep, because Laura's on her way into school, and we're zoomed right in on Nellie Oleson.
Let's see if she brings She's got red ribbons in her hair. Well, Nellie does a very, very uncharitable thing. They were playing some kind of rope game. 2 girls were turning a rope, and I guess they were having fun, and Willie was like, and I'm winning. And Nellie says, let's play a new game. And she says, why don't we play horsey, and we can ride around, and, we can ride around the schoolyard. And they were like, we don't have a horse. She goes, maybe we can get one. And she had been staring at Laura, and now she walks over to Laura, and she says, where's your father? We need a horse, and he smells like one, so maybe we can ride him. And Laura gets very upset.
Very upset. She throws the tablet down and tells her to take it back. I'm not going to take it back, and you can run to Miss Beadle and do whatever.
No, she says, even if you run crying to Miss Beadle,
I am not going to take it back.
And Laura goes, well, if you won't take it back, she hauls off and punches her right in the face. And Nellie falls down on the ground, and she's got a bloody nose. And she says the same quote that Pa had said to her, that hardworking folk only smell bad to people who have their noses up in the air, or something like that. And she said, well, whenever you put your nose up in the air with me, Nellie Oleson, I'm going to punch it. And then she goes inside, and as she's going inside, she tells Miss Beadle it had nothing to do with her, thanks her for the tablets, but bang, pow, she knocked her right down, and Willie said, I apologize, I hope I take it back.
We're at the McKay farm now, where Chaz is in that pit, and now he's digging out these big giant rocks.
He's like breaking rocks to try to get them out of there. This is back-breaking work.
And McKay comes out and he says, oh, how's it going? It's going along just fine. And then that's when McKay tells him, well, Chaz, I didn't really think you'd be able to do this, and that's why I said okay, and I'd sit back. And Chaz looked very nervous about this.
He looked very nervous because he was like, this is like back-breaking work. Yeah. If he had spent all this time and this guy was now going to tell him, forget it.
So the guy in turn says, well, I just thinking we might get done a lot faster if we were both working at it, hey? And there was Chaz with the smirkaloo.
We had the smirkaloo.
It's back. Now all of a sudden, let's have a sip of cider and let's get to it.
Let's get to work. And now we see Mrs. Whipple, and she's inspecting a dress, and we'll find out what's happening with Mary next. Mary's got quick, nimble fingers, and she is just running through all of Mrs. Whipple's work. She finished something that wasn't even supposed to be finished this week, let alone next week, and she is making all her perfect stitches, and she's trying to figure out how she can make more money by starting another garment, and Mrs. Whipple is hearing none of it. She tells her it's not right to argue with old people. It's not good for them, and she sends her on her way, and now she's walking all over the house trying to figure out, because Mrs. Whipple went in the back and she's making herself some tea. She's trying to figure out how to ask for her wages because Mrs. Whipple seems to have forgotten that it was Friday. She was more concerned about Mary going and walking home with her sister because school was just about to get out. And then she goes back and forth, and finally she says, Mrs. Whipple, I just thought it's Friday. And she said, oh my goodness.
Oh, I didn't pay you.
She got $1.70. $1.70 something cents. I think it was a little bit of extra change. And she is over the moon. She gives Mrs. Whipple a kiss on the cheek. And now she is running towards the school at fast speed because we know Mary likes to go fast.
Old Chaz might be able to get some coffee now.
Oh my gosh, and maybe some tobacco for the pipe.
So after Mary leaves Mrs. Whipple, she's running over to the school to get with Laura, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs, Laura, I got $1.70, Laura!
So now the entire town knows how much money she made, and it was he was right. It was $1.70.
And then they pan over to Chaz, who's walking through the field, and you see Ma up there with the team. She got the dream team with a plow. And he basically goes up there and feeds her a bunch of small little lions about how she's the prettiest woman. And his only regret is he can't ask her to marry him again. I think if we read behind the scenes, he might have felt a little differently, but why not?
Yes, but then they give this kiss, and the music is swelling, and one of the horses is stomping the ground like Trigger, and they pull back to this epic scene, and there they are, just loving each other in the field, all dirty together. So they do that working montage thing where they show everybody back and forth. Charles is over there digging with that guy on his property, McKay, and they're digging and they get that water drained out of there and they go back and forth for all the work that's happening as Carrie was helping Ma with the potatoes, even though we realized that where was Carrie when Ma was plowing the field? We haven't figured that out yet, but they let us know that time has gone by and now they're back there inside of the house and he is counting a considerable amount of money. Like, how much money did they charge cash on the barrelhead over here?
Looks like he charged quite a bit.
I mean, this is a considerable amount of paper money, and then he's counting the coins, and he says, more than enough to pay back the bill with money besides. We're going to get some coffee, and we're going to get some tea, and we're going to get some white sugar, because that's so great for their teeth. And then get on your Sunday bets. I'm going to go, bathe in the creek, and we're going to go pay this bill.
We earn the money together. We're going to go pay the bill together. Well, it certainly is an auspicious day. Because not only did they show up in their Sunday best to get into the mercantile, but Chaz is wearing the Christmas episode shirt.
Yay!
Yeah.
It's either the one that Mary made or the one that Mom made, depending on which way the laundry is going.
So they see Nels. He's happy to see him. He tells him he's there to pay the bill. He says, oh, hold on a second. My wife will handle this. And when she comes out, she is stonewalled by them all standing there and Laura with this big shit-eating grin.
Yes, but Mrs. Oleson is who he's talking about. She comes out and she is just flabbergasted by the fact that the entire family is there.
And not only are they paying the bill, but they're going to do some shopping while they're there, and that's going to be cash on the barrelhead.
Cash on the barrelhead.
So, yeehaw, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, the Ingalls are back on their feet.
They are back on their feet.
Woohoo!
Woo! Well, the whole family comes outside, Carrie included, because she had just asked for some white sugar from the bottom of the counter. They had to look down between stuff to go see her.
Yay, Carrie.
And Charles is carrying a very heavy-looking wooden crate of all the supplies that they have just replenished with this extra money that they all pulled together for. And they had said that to Mrs. Oleson. And now Nels proclaims, we've always been lucky with money, but I think you, Charles, are the richest man in Walnut Grove.
And that's the title of this episode.
Yes, and Charles agrees, and they go bouncing over the wagon ruts together as they go back to the farm with all of their stuff, and everything is right with the world again.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw!
And here's how we're starting off with season 2. They did it again. We had at least 2 categories.
We had at least 2 categories. We had some lying, and we had some crying.
Oh, yeah.
And they were hitting the buttons for us. And there was no mention of dying in this one, but we know they're going to bring it out there somewhere because they always do.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So make sure you join us for the next episode, which is called 4 Eyes.
4 Eyes?
4 Eyes.
Oh, boy.
And that concludes this episode on Dyin,
Cryin
and Lyin on Two Luckies.
Two Luckies,
the podcast.
We release these weekly, and there's a whole bunch of them out already, so go check them out.
We'll see you the next time.
We're out.
Two Luckies, the podcast.
Two Luckies, the podcast. Two Luckies, the podcast. Hey, you stayed.
You made it to the end.
Here's our fun fact. We recorded this episode during the Great Battle of the Wallpaper 2026.
And what a battle it was.
What a battle it was. It fought us every step of the way, but finally we were victorious. But in the middle of recording this episode, we were in the thick of it.
Oh, yeah.